Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt with the Movement System. In this video, we're going to break down a full American football training program. So this strength and conditioning program is a 4-week program for the early preseason for an American football player. We're going to go right into the details of it. So this isn't going to be a big overview or 1 to 2 exercises. This is a full program, and we're going to talk about the periodization strategy. We're going to talk about other program design variables, some position-specific modifications that you can make to this program. And really my thought process behind the exercise selection, the volume, and other factors like that. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it. All right, so what you can see here is this is an early preseason training program, and this is a 4-week block of training. So ideally, you would do this about 8 weeks out of the start of football season. So if your first game is 8 weeks from now, this would be week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then you would probably do a late preseason training block after this, and then get into your in-season training. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're coming from here, and let's just get right into the layout here. So what you can see is this is a 4-day-a-week training program, and this is a high CNS day and a low CNS day. So this is broken up into Monday, Thursday being high CNS days, and for CNS meaning central nervous system. And the reason that we're doing that is because we want these days to be really fast, stressful, high acceleration, high power days that we're going to then do a little bit of a lower day the following day so that we can actually fully recover before we get these full high intensity efforts again on Thursday. So we want our athletes to actually be going really hard 100% on Monday and Thursday rather than just having a bunch of moderate intensity training days. Unfortunately, a lot of coaches are out there doing, a chest day, an arm day, a back day for football players, and really that produces a lot of these slow, big athletes that aren't really making big plays on the field. If we want to produce athletes that are actually producing high force and maximizing their athleticism, then what we need to do is stress them to a high extent 2 times a week or so. And then we actually want to make those low CNS days low intensity enough that they can recover and train really hard again. So that's the way that I decided to break this up. And again, you can make your own decisions and modify as needed. All right, so let's go ahead and start breaking down these exercises one at a time. And we'll start with the 40-yard strides here on Monday of the high CNS day. So we're doing 40-yard strides here. For most athletes, that's going to be under 5 seconds. And we're going to give them a full minute and 20 seconds rest. We want these to be near maximal speed. If we're resting for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds between, what you're going to see is athletes are going to hit 4.8 seconds the first time, then 4.9, then 5.0, 5.1 seconds, and they're no longer training maximal speed by that 5th rep. If we give them the full minute and 20 seconds rest, they should be within 5% of their max speed on each of these efforts. And that will actually allow them to be training the quality of maximal speed. So that's what we're training here with these 40-yard strides. I want to mention that this was kind of built for a tight end linebacker in mind. If we're training an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman and they're not going to be sprinting 40 yards in the game, it actually may be beneficial to reduce this to a 10-yard stride or a 20-yard stride and maybe even add some type of resistance to this. So again, we can make those position-specific modifications. If this is a wide receiver, you may even do 50-yard strides, because you're early enough in the preseason, and then drop that down to 40, 30-yard strides, as you approach the season. But those are some of the position-specific modifications that we make. But overall, we want to be training the quality of max speed here early in the workout on our high CNS day. Moving on, we have hill accelerations of 10 yards. Now, this is a 10-yard, very fast acceleration, and we're also doing it on a hill. This is a strength speed exercise, so that means that we're going to be heavily loaded, long ground contact time, 0.5, 0.6 seconds of ground contact time with the foot here, to actually be producing these really high, forceful steps into the ground. Now, we're training that early preseason overloaded by going up a hill here to really focus on the quality of strength speed. So again, we're overloaded by going up a hill, short distance, long ground contact time. This is basically the opposite of that first exercise, which was max speed. Now we're really focusing in on and overloading the acceleration portion of this. This is going to be a really effective exercise for anyone on a line with, working through physical contact that really needs to be focused on that acceleration phase. And this is also going to be important for our change of direction athletes, like a cornerback or a wide receiver who's going to actually need to be changing direction with those long ground contact times. So this is going to be an exercise that we're going to program week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and we're going to keep coaching these athletes. We don't want to modify this, and change it up every week, because this is one that we actually want to build the technique for. The next exercise is going to transition us kind of from the field into the weight room, and that's going to be a primer box jump. Now, for our advanced athletes, so our college level athletes or our athletes that have both plyometric and resistance training experience, you may actually superset this with a squat movement or a loaded exercise, and potentially change this into a post activation potentiation drill, where we're doing a squat jump followed by a heavy front squat, for example. But in this case, we're thinking kind of along the lines of a high school athlete, and we're just going to give them a primer of a basic box jump and have them do 3 sets of 3, 9 big explosive reps here to start off their weight room training. And that's actually going to change week to week. So we want to work in vertical and horizontal. So we're actually going to work in some type of lateral barrier hop over a hurdle, for that same 3 sets of 3 on every other week here. All right, now moving into the weight room for some hardcore strength training here. We're going to be focused on strength speed again. Strength speed is a little bit different than speed strength. In that strength speed zone, we're a little bit closer to our heavy loads. So we're going to be actually seeing around 72, 74, 75% one rep max here for a set of 5. So if you're familiar with Prilipin's chart, you might know that you can actually load 75% for probably 10 reps. But if we want these reps to be very fast and strength speed focused, we're going to actually drop that down to around 72, 75, maybe even 80%, but really focus on fast bar speed. So we might even add chains and bands here, a little bit of that accommodating resistance so that we can explode through the full range of motion of this rep. So about 72% of weight on the bar, maybe a light band on there, which we can progress, as we're dropping reps down here from week 1, week 2, week 3. And what we're going to be focused on again is bar speed here and strength speed. Now, what I want to mention here, guys, is that this is linear periodization. So what we're doing here is our sport specific training, which is our speed work, the strides, the hill accelerations. Those are actually going up in volume. So we're actually taking those from 1 set of 5, 1 set of 6, 1 set of 8, and we're increasing the volume of those sport specific movements. What we're doing with the weight room, though, is the opposite. We're actually decreasing the volume uh, here, just overall from 2 sets of 8, 2 sets of 8, 2 sets of 8. That one's going to stay, but 10, 8, 6. What you can see here: 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 4, 3 sets of 4. So our strength training is actually decreasing in volume. Off season, we were probably working on hypertrophy. You might have seen 3 sets of 12, 3 sets of 15 in there, 4 sets of 10. But now we're really in the preseason, and we're starting to really drop that volume week to week in that linear periodization model here, and increasing the sport specific training volume. And then moving on to our Bulgarian split squat, we're going to focus on that for 2 sets of 8, and we're just going to keep it the same. The Bulgarian split squat's an exercise that takes a lot of technique and some stability. So we're actually going to want to consistently load that from week to week. So I'm not going to change a lot of variables here. I'm just going to keep that at a solid 2 sets of 8 and program it for 4 weeks in a row. Our Penlay row here that's a great exercise for building up some lower back endurance and strength, as well as some upper back pulling strength. So our athletes that are in need to really pull players and move them on the field, as well as have some stiffness and rigidity of the trunk and the core, this is a great exercise for building that. So we're going to coach that one again consistently and load it, probably heavier and heavier here each week, because we want the intensity to be going up and our volume to be dropping off. So set 2 sets of 10 down to 2 sets of 8, 2 sets of 6, and we want to see this being loaded heavier and heavier each week. So our athletes might be writing down here, 135. If we're talking about a high school athlete here, maybe progressing to 140, 145, 150, throughout this block of training. And then rounding off our day 1 here is going to be a med ball rotational throw. We're going to really coach this one with some good hip rotation, trunk rotation, some sequencing of that movement. And again, the actual volume of this is going to go down, but we're going to focus on getting a little bit more sport specific. For our athletes, we're going to have to move heavy players. We're going to start with a light ball and actually progress to a more of a sport specific, heavier weight as we get closer to the season. Before we move into the second day of training here, guys, if this video is helpful for you, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button. It does help the channel out tremendously in growing and reaching a new audience. And if you really like this content, leave a comment and maybe even screenshot the video and tag me on Instagram at the Movement System to help spread the word. All right, so now moving into our second day of training here, our Wednesday, Friday workout, and we're gonna focus on single leg jumps here. So this is still a plyometric exercise. It's still fairly intense, but it's not gonna be quite as intense as a full-on sprint or an acceleration. It's gonna be a little bit more balance and stability focused. That's why we put it on the low CNS day. This is 3 hops in a row on one leg for max distance. We're gonna do each leg for 3 sets of 4. Following those single leg jumps, we're going to move into a tempo run. And this one's a little bit debatable, right? Because it's kind of aerobic. So our American football players are typically kind of PCR system, very anaerobic, alactic, fast athletes with these short duration events. But I want to throw in one tempo run for a little bit of conditioning here, a little bit of recovery. So I'm going to program these for 4 to 6 sets of 80 yards with a decent recovery here, probably around 2 minutes. So moving on, we now have a modified Illinois run. And just to walk you guys through my thought process here, we went from single leg jumps, which is really stability focused and technique focused, to a tempo run, which is a little bit of an aerobic base kind of work. It's just a little bit more distance than they're typically used to. So we have those two different stimuli, and now we're going to get into a maneuverability and agility stimulus, which is a modified Illinois run. Now, you could do any type of agility drill. I would actually try to work in some reactive agility drills, especially as you get into the late preseason. But I just put modified Illinois run because it gives you an idea of the type of drill that we're looking for. The Illinois run, for those who aren't familiar, kind of looks like this. It goes out to a cone, back, and then basically you're weaving in and out of cones that are about 3 yards apart, and then finishing off with another sprint. We're starting on the ground with this. You can actually start in different positions. You can start in an athletic stance, a three-point stance, facing a different direction. And this is a really good drill, especially for, tight ends, cornerbacks, wide receivers, linebackers, anyone who's going to need that maneuverability and agility type of training. And then getting into the weight room, we're going to focus on some weighted pull-ups. This is going to be 6, 6, and 6 plus. So if you're not familiar with that plus set, that plus set is just as many reps as you can on your last set. So this is really our only big pulling movement. So we're going to throw in that plus set to really burn them out. And that's a little bit more hypertrophy focused, but that's fine here. We're going to superset that actually with a rotator cuff external rotation, just to throw something else in there and get a little bit work on that, back of the shoulder blade there, stability of the shoulder. You could also work in, a loaded carry of some sort there instead. But this is just one way to do it. Following that superset, we're going to go to a half kneeling landmine press, supersetted with a lateral lunge. So in this low CNS day, we're going to work on some different movement patterns. The half kneeling landmine press is going to get some full upward rotation of our scapula and reaching pattern that we're not quite getting with like a bench press motion on our day one. That lateral lunge is going to get us some strength in the lateral hip musculature. You could also do lateral step ups or any other lateral strengthening. But working in that frontal plane, in addition to sagittal plane exercises, is really important for our athletes who are going to be multiplanar and have to produce high force to cut in different directions. And I think that's really one area where a lot of football programs are lacking, is they're entirely focused on these sagittal plane power exercises, lots of sprints and power cleans and bench press and squats, but not a lot moving in the lateral direction. So this could actually help our athletes get in and out of those cutting positions. And then lastly, we're going to get 2 sets on the glute ham developer, 2 sets of 10 there. And that will just add a little bit of posterior strength work and volume to that posterior chain. We're probably going to actually take that off as we get to the late preseason and instead focus on more of those sport specific movements. But in this early preseason, 2 sets of that kind of fits and works well. All right, guys, I hope this was really helpful, but I do want to keep the conversation going. So drop one exercise below in the comments on what you might add to a program like this, or maybe even a late preseason program that's a good football training exercise, and that'll help us facilitate some more discussion. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Smash that like button if it was helpful for you, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.